Check. Ooh, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you so much for coming to the Sashiko Live Streaming. This is Atsushi. Sorry, I was a little late. Whew. Little technical issues. I hope that this is good now, I guess. Just a second, I will check the sound. Okay, that's good. Whew. I ran so much that it's a little... I'm out of breath. But anyway, thank you so much for coming to the Sashiko Live Streaming. This is Thursday night. This is the place where I stitch Sashiko while talking about Sashiko. I welcome these questions about Sashiko's culture story, not the technique, because I don't want to make it like a webinar or workshop. If you can bring something to stitch, that'd be great. Yep, that's it. Okay, I will start stitching, but just a second. Little break. Okay, I will change the camera. Just a second. Good evening. Thank you so much for coming. You may see me stitching something different today. The reason is that I have not prepared much, but that's good stuff. Ooh. Sorry to be late. I like to be punctual, so it has been a little crazy week. I hope everybody's doing fine. Bring some stitching materials, and we can talk and stitch together. That's what the purpose of this live stream is about. Just a second. I'm still out of breath. I brought some topics today, so I will talk about that eventually. Let me get on the rhythm first, because I'm still out of breath. Come on. All right. I started doing this denim, and I cannot stop it until I kind of finish it. I mean, technically speaking, I can, but I like to wear that if it's gonna fit me. So let's see how it's gonna go. So today I will be stitching denim, which is probably rare. So I might speak a little less, which might not be fun, but I will of course catch up some of the talking if that's the case. Just let's see how it's gonna be like today. Whew. Something happened around me. I don't know what happened last week, but the traffic became pretty busy on my account, like Instagram pretty much Instagram, but I got a lot of new traffic, which is great. I really appreciate that. But when the traffic increased, the questions, request, comment, those also increase. So it has been a little difficult. But I just don't know what happened last week. Somebody mentioned about my name. Some media took my name. It's kind of scary that so many people are jumping into that account. Well, that's the social media probably. You don't know where it gets. You don't know what happens. Why happened? That's the problem too, because when they get popularity, that's gonna be the answer. So that's something I would like to make sure to not to say. Yeah, I'm not offering the workshop this year anymore, so that's gonna be quite difficult for me to set up the workshop. I'm pretty confident of my online class, but many people prefer in person right now, so I understand the difficulties. But it was quite interesting week last week. Well, I'm sorry, it has been quite interesting week to see those. Something changed. I haven't changed at all. I'm the same one. If I started saying something different, please let me know. But I think I'm the same, but something else around me changed, and I don't know if it's good. I think it's good, but let's see how it's gonna go. I'm the one who is not aware of that, so it's very interesting. Hello, hello. So today's topic is the sort of Anbai. Anbai is the Japanese word for just right. If I have to translate, there's no exact word to describe that in English, but if I have to translate it, that's gonna be that's gonna be the translation for that. But just because is the word for that, and no, not just because, just right, just about. And that's something I do not really see in the Western culture. I, including myself, we tend to focus on the right or wrong. So the story I talked about on the Instagram is what is the right size of the Sashiko stitches? Many people say that that's the rice grain size, right? But the question is, what is the rice? What kind of rice are we talking about? So it's very interesting to see those discussions happening on the Instagram or Facebook. I don't go those places anymore because I don't want to be attacked accidentally. So I don't go those places much more, but they are talking about the answers without involving the Japanese people. So that's kind of interesting to see that how they can define those answers. And of course, some of them probably learned Sashiko from the Japanese, so their answers can be right. And every answer is right for that matter. Excuse me. But come to think about it, it is somebody's answer, right? Somebody's answer passed down to somebody else, and then that answer becomes shallower and also narrower. I think the Sashiko stitches has to be rice grain size is the sort of result of that. りえこさんこんばんは。ありがとうございます。So it is not really somebody stated that somewhere. Japanese people say that Sashiko stitches size is right, just right about rice grain size. I don't know anybody who is saying that it has to be. So just right about, it's called Anbai, is the sort of measurement or benchmark or idea, not the rules. For some reason, when it translated in different language, that has become the rule. And that one has to make the rice grain size stitches, that kind of like pressure or that mindset blocks the core fun part of Sashiko. And that's very sad. I'm sorry. in my experience, unless they're doing specific sashiko such as hitomezashi, in the running stitch, we do not really care. Care is not a good word. There's no answer for that. There's only the rhythm. So this rice size, I'm sorry, the Sashiko stitches is going to be the rice size. Rice size is a good benchmark, but not the answer. When it becomes the answer, then it's going to be very difficult to play. You know what? I cannot speak with this. I will switch the fabric later. Wow, let's see. I feel I'm very clumsy on stitching and also talking. God, how can I? Well, that's the reason I always stitch one specific pattern. I cannot do this well. I'll just change it, I'm sorry. Oh yes. I thought I could do it. But I couldn't, so I'll do the regular. You've seen that already so many times, but where did I stop stitching? Oh, there we go. So don't worry about the size of Sashiko stitches. It's great if you can make the rice grain size, but you can decide what kind of rice you would like to make it. And that's kind of a scary part of this. And I'm not really worried about somebody changing the culture. I'm worried about somebody narrowing the culture without even involving the people who are behind. I can see a lot of discussion on the internet right now. And that shouldn't be the only answer. I mean, you can tell that I make different sizes of stitches, and I'm not gonna judge myself for making different stitches. So that's kind of the difference between the answer and also Anbai, which I brought as a topic today. So it's like it's not ambiguous. It's not like ambiguous as you think. It's more clear than that. At the same time, it's not the answer. So they have some specific expectation for that. So you are expected to make somewhat rice size, but it's not the answer. So you can probably make the rice grain size you think of. And that's probably what the Japanese people told each other when they were young. I mean, in my area, they did not teach like that. They did not really pass down the information like that. But I know there are places that they mention the rice grain size as the benchmark, reference, expectation. But interestingly, that has become the answer for many people, and those informations are flying everywhere in the social media, right? Social media. I even get a question like, your stitches are so small, like, isn't it supposed to be rice grain size? And see, that's kind of the scary part. They mean well. They are very curious. They are very, they don't want to harm anything. But by trusting somebody's answer, that somebody may be somebody famous or somebody knowledgeable, but that might be the answer without including anyone who actually knows what's going on. So that's the reason I keep saying that please care the upstream, who they learn from. And sometimes people might think that it's not that important where they learn from, as long as they can get a result. And that's true. That's quite true statement for the crafting or for fun. You don't really have to, look into that much. But if they have chance to look into that, checking, I mean, I don't want to say responsible. Responsibility is a little bit too big a word. But at the same time, I feel very much responsible for sharing this Sashiko. So, for example, if somebody comes to me to learn Sashiko, like running stage Junshin, sorry, and if that person could not do that, even after practicing or taking the workshop, I will be there to help until they can do it. That's my responsibility. That's my commitment to do that. But if we don't have any upstream, we may end up with having no responsibility from whatsoever. Hello, good morning from Australia, good morning from the other side of the world. So the responsibility, yeah, I want them to be responsible for what they're talking about. Like if they can be that definitive. Like I've heard that rice grain size is great is, that's not a wrong answer. And that's a good information. But when we start defining you have to make rice grain size, then I don't know anybody who actually said that same thing in Japan. Again, they use rice grain as the reference or expectation, but not the answer. In my understanding, there might be somebody else who actually said that it has to be rice grain size in Japanese. There might be somebody like that, just I don't know that. In that case, I can learn. Then I can take everything back I said. So, but it is true in that specific Sashiko, and it is true that in my Sashiko, there are no right sizes. And both of them are good. I am specifying that what I'm teaching is the Sashiko we practice. And the differences are very good, and it could happen. But if they can kind of if I am wrong, like let's say that there are Japanese experienced Sashiko teacher who keep saying that it has to be rice grain size, then we can kind of locate the upstream, right? It might be a Sashiko teacher, it might be some specific teacher. We don't know, but that person, either alive or not, they received something, and I'd like to learn that instead of defining so easily. They probably have the answer for what kind of rice too, right? In that case, because they have a specific answer. If they have a specific answer. I think that's what cultural appropriation really is. I mean, we have to sometimes take a very hard way to protect that. And I respect those people who go to the kind of extreme or very difficult way to go through. Like, some people think, sorry, God, something happened in my Bronx. It was very funny, not funny, but it's really interesting. It's a learning experience for me as well. But when I say like cultural appropriation, when I use that cultural appropriation word, some people immediately think that I am saying Sashiko is only for Japanese people. I am not saying any of those comments, but they automatically assume that I am criticizing them or are accusing them, which I am not, but they think that I am doing it. So they don't read what I write, they read what they want to read. So, and I will support and I will respect if there are anybody who is saying that Sashiko should be only for Japanese people. If somebody's saying that, I would like to know why he or she is saying that, and I would like to understand But from my perspective, from my understanding at this moment, I don't think like that. So I do not know what the cultural appropriation is in this context. But if I have to define what it is the process of ignoring the original form. And unfortunately, social media expedited it very, 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 very fast. It did not happen like this fast before the internet. So it's like is there any game that you say one thing to you tell one sentence to the next person to tell the another person, and how the sentence become different at the end? We call it dengon game in Japan. Probably there's a similar game in English as well. But that's how original message can be changed, modified, because we have own values, we have own thinking, mindset, philosophy. So it is very accepted or understandable that it's going to be changed. So that's the point. If they know that the original sentence may be different, that's a very actually good sign, because they can go back to the original sentence by knowing that it's not the original. But when they start saying that it's the original, we call that game telephone. Okay, that's that. Yep. Wow. Thank you. It's really the same. Telephone. Grave. Oh, it's called the grapevine game. Wow. So probably there's so many names for that. Grapevine, telephone, probably something else as well. So yeah, just I think my message is getting very clear by now. 2022, my message has been. It's probably for you. You might be tired of hearing this, but I keep saying that Sashiko introduced in English is not wrong, but insufficient. It's not incomplete. It's not. I don't want to say even good enough. It's just not sufficient, not full, not whole. And it's not gonna be completed by us, because it's almost impossible to include everybody. Some people already gone, so we have to imagine. So there won't be the completion, but there should be some place where we know that we do not know the whole, and that's probably good enough. If everybody knows that we do not know everything, then that's probably one good destination. We can say that, well, we know what we don't know about Sashiko, so we can start learning. We'll keep learning. But right now is not the case, because everybody thinks that they know. Many people think that they know about Sashiko already. Something is wrong with my chest. I'm kind of wheezing. What the heck is going on? It's not that cold. Sorry if you hear the wheezing. I'm sorry. It sometimes happens. I had asthma in my childhood, and since I'm stupid, I started smoking when I was 20, and it did not really come back after that. But recently, I think aging is the key. But I still a little bit having that back again. I quit smoking a long time ago, so it's not probably from smoking. But I think something got into my bronchs, so bronchitis? Yeah, something like that. So, as always, this is not the story that I want to tell you, because you're not the one who I need to tell. So I'm just complaining right now, so I'm sorry for that. But I hope that my message will fly at some point. It's quite surprising to learn that Sashiko's stitches has to be rice grain size. Like, really? Like, who said that? See, I can talk, right? When I stitch this, I can talk. When stitch this, I couldn't talk. What I don't even remember what I was talking when I was stitching the denim. That's the problem. That's the problem. But again, that's something I don't think I can change. It's not my stitching issue. It's my English issue. There's a saying that a wise person knows that they know nothing. Yes, yes, we do have very similar saying that knowing what is not what we don't know is very important. Or knowing what is sufficient is very important too. Instead of like asking more and more. But unfortunately, this world, this today's society is not designed to be like that. We are not trained, we are not educated to do so. We as, I don't think you specifically, but we as like the people who live today's world, we're very much trained to do quick. Like I'm like a dog, but quick answer, quick solution, efficient solution, quickness, and that's what we pay for. So we support that society, and we get benefit out of it too. We get a lot of benefit out of it. We don't want to go back to that slow age. Like as a whole, we would like to have a choice to go slow, but I don't think not many people want to go back to that slow as a it's not extreme. Like we would like to keep this slowness as the choice, and that's something we should celebrate. And we don't want to go back to that slow all the time. We want to keep this slowness as the option. The reason I keep saying that it's really scary or frustrating, as Candida say, is that they are trying to cut and take out the slowness and then cover it with some other values they carry. And that's not really in between. So you have to stitch slow is one thing, but there's so many concepts that they will, they mixed those concepts and then some people market it. Oh, there was a comment. There was a comment that she sort of accused me making money out of doing Sashiko. Like, how could you talk about it while I like me selling Sashiko supplies, or I am making business out of it. So she's accused me of that, but I never say that one should not make money out of it, even Japanese or non-Japanese. And that's going to be a sensitive issue for the cultural appropriation. So some people say it's okay to imitate or get inspired if they don't make money, to be fair. And in my understanding, it is even okay to make money out of it if they acknowledge it. If they acknowledge what's going on, I think there's nothing wrong. In fact, I encourage them to make a business out of it if they can. I like more like sustainable way to, like business as a sustainable method. The purpose of what I do is not the business, but in order to achieve what I want to do, we have to have business too. Huh? I said right? The business is not the purpose of what I do, but in order to keep what I do, I need business form. Okay, yeah, that's good. So it's really twisted in a way that they want to see what they want to see, and they want to read what they want to read. And many people say like, that's fine. I'll try. They even say like, I will try to go find something else than what you say, which is perfectly fine. Go and find something else if they can. That's great. But that means that they are ignoring something something uncomfortable, inconvenience to them. So when I say ignorant or indifference, that's not actually not knowing or like innocently making it like equal. That's of course that's ignorance and that's indifference in bigger definition. But when I say those things, it's more like intentional thing. I don't like what you say, that's why I don't learn from you. But my Sashiko is Sashiko, although I do not know any Japanese, or I just Googled it. I just kept Googling to find the answer I would like to get. And this is Sashiko. Or this is the Sashiko. Well, that's a little too much, right? Not little, that's a lot too much. And that's the case. That's the case of cultural appropriation, and everything else is to me, not that significant. Again, this understanding can be very different from people by people. So don't take my word and apply it to different concepts. But in the Sashiko we practice, that's my honest feeling. So please call your stitching Sashiko if you want to. If you want to, you don't have to. If you want to, only if you want to, please call your stitching Sashiko. Like don't use the word inspired. I don't know what is inspired. Like, yeah, sure, that's great that you got inspired, but like I don't see the point of saying the inspired. And I understand that they say it's the sign of respect. Well, sign of respect is not the word. Sign of respect is to keep learning. It's an action, so after all, I just, they say inspired, but what are they inspired by? By just look? By this design pattern? Mindset? Oh, I don't know what they're inspired by, but if they are gonna say inspired, I want them to specify what they got inspired by. And if they're talking about Japanese culture, it's kind of impossible to be inspired by Sashiko's culture without talking to the actual Japanese people. So if they are inspired by the design, that's perfectly fine, right? That's everybody understand that. Well, she got inspired by that. So try to learn the word Anbai, which is just about. Right, just about, which is sort of in between the answer and ambiguity. There's something here which is, I would call it like an expectation. It's not the answer. It's not like ambiguous. It's just we all expect that to be like that, but not the answer. It's so difficult. The good explanation might be like, when you cook something, are you the person who measure everything with the scale, like spoon or teaspoon, like 1 tablespoon of oil, or 2 teaspoons of soy sauce, or when you cook something, when you follow the recipe, you have to measure everything precisely. And that's the answer that I'm talking about. That's the answer, and that's the answer right now. In that cooking, the recipe is the answer. So it's very important to follow the answer. And the picture itself, or the image itself, is the ambiguity of the cooking. You know what it is, but you don't really know how to cook it. Something in between the Anbai is the you experience how much soy sauce you need for that specific amount of stir fry, let's say. You don't know how much per number, you don't know how precisely it is, but you know right amount of soy sauce for that specific amount of veggies. That is called Anbai. Not the answer, not the not the ambiguity in between. And many people can do that. It's not only Japanese, it's just, not well translated. It's not only Japanese people's skill or something. It's just, it's difficult to explain that. And Sashiko exists in that. In between ambiguity and answer. Like the cooking. It's probably difficult to make a recipe book asking, our grandmother or grandfather, because they might not have the recipe. They have like numbers of dishes they can make, but they might not have like those recipes. So what we have to do is to sort of observe or ask. Every time they sort of use some ingredients, you have to ask how much it is. Then you can make their answer, but that's not the answer. Unfortunately, in Sashiko, people are defining one answer as the answer for everything. And they're making a recipe out of it. I mean, they're making a recipe book out of it. Does it make sense? I think it makes sense, right? I hope it's the same in every culture. Something we... Intuitive is quite very close. I think yes, I think intuitive is, but when we talk about intuitive, it's more like it's the message, or it's the some realization without specific reason, right? Intuitive means like something we could not control it. Anbai is more like based on experience. Second nature. That's a good probably one. Something like intuitive could be very close, but intuitive sounds a little more supernatural, so it's not that supernatural. There is a reason behind that. It's experience or long years of practice. And Anbai, how to spell is Anbai is probably A-N B-A-I. Well, it's Japanese, so it's not really a good idea to spell it like with English letter. But the kanji we use for Anbai is Are? Just a second. It's salt amount. My Japanese is getting so bad as well. Well, I can speak, but yeah. Whew. It's the... Okay, I was right. It's the amount of the salt for making the plum pickles. That's the origin of this word. So when I say Anbai ga ii, which means like the right amount of the salt to make the good pickles. I mean, pickled plum. Ubenboshi. Intuitively from practice, yes. That's if my understanding of intuitive is wrong, not a wrong, but the misunderstanding intuitive as the supernatural. If it's from practice, then it is intuitive. They did not know any recipe for making the plum pickles because many years ago, not that many, but a few hundred years ago, pretty much all Japanese family household made their plum pickles in their household, like household recipe kind of stuff like that. And they have their own amount of salt, and each year they have different amount of harvest of the plum. So there's no like answers for the ありがとうレイコさん thank you レイコさん wrote the Anbai as the Japanese, I mean kanji character. So that's that. No. Usually it does not read like that, but an is salt, bai means plum, but it's not equal. An is not like salt is not called an in Japanese, so it's really tricky for that. You have to memorize different sound, which is crazy, I know, but it's the amount of salt when you make plum pickles, and that's what I see missing in Sashiko now. Everything has to be following the recipe. Like everything has to be the same as the answer, and that's kind of boring too. And I don't know what they're inspired by for that. Thank you for clarifying that, Candida. So you don't have to have the answer. You will get the answer. That's the whole point. If you keep making the pickled plum, you make mistakes. Like you may completely ruin the whole batch of plum pickles one season. It's gonna be sad. It's gonna be very, you'll be ashamed of that, and many people might blame on you. It's sad, but that's one experience. Based on those accumulation of those experiences will make the answer for them, not for anybody else, for them. And that's what I want in Sashiko too. That's why I don't teach what is the right size of Sashiko stitching. Like if I start saying like you have to make 0.1 inch stitches, stop me. Don't you have to know the rules before you can break them? Yes, that's more like a martial art. Shuhari. Reiko-san, Shuhari, please. Sorry. Reiko-san will probably help me to write that Shuhari. Shuhari is one concept of martial arts. Shu means protect. Ha means break. D is leave. So that's kind of 3 steps that one student has to, ideally to take. So you have to protect that practice first. Once you think you can protect it, then you can break it. Like before you think you can protect it, you shouldn't break it. Thank you. Reiko-san, arigato. Thank you so much. And if after you break it, of course, you can leave it and you can start making your own. But first, of course, you have to know how to protect the original. And that's kind of similar concept of you have to know the basic in order to break the rules. But since many culture in Japan do not have a specific rules, instead of defining the rules, they said protect. I don't know what they protect too. Like I don't know. It really depends what they protect, and from or for or what. But instead of saying following the rules, they say that protect. But that makes sense. That really makes sense. If one person can protect one culture, I think he or she is entitled or qualified to try to do something new. And that's the change I admire. The culture is supposed to change over time, and then if it's reasonable, I'm happy to have it. So if the culture, Sashiko culture, is completely different from, the culture of Sashiko becomes completely different from today by somebody who know about Sashiko, then I have no problem with that. In fact, I would like to see that. I really would like to see that. And I don't think, well, this is probably the difference of the strictness, but some people probably say that you have to be able to protect it 100%. Like you, the person has to be able to protect it by themselves, then you can break it. I don't feel like that much. I'm probably more easygoing. If they know how to protect it, then I think it's okay. In that case, like if I can protect the Sashiko we practice, right? I don't know if I can protect the whole Sashiko as the whole picture. I'm trying. But since I can protect what I can, you don't have to master what I do. You don't have to be me to break it. You just have to know me, though. You say, okay, ask us to Atsushi. And that's probably good enough to go to the breaking part. And that's the same as the same message as protect the upstream. If they know the upstream, where the upstream is, then they can do, I don't want to say whatever they want, but pretty close to whatever you want. I hope I can share one day, but I tried to do something a little bit crazy, kind of crazy, out of very ordinary for the quilting project I'm doing. I was very worried about it, and I was looking for the solution for my theme. And as you know, I'm very, very amateur. I have almost zero knowledge about quilting. So I did not want to break it. First, I wanted to follow the basic rule, but the basic rule was not my theme. So instead of following that, instead of mastering the basic, I asked the quilting teacher for their opinion. And they suggested some of the way, and you can try that. And in that case, I will never say that what I did is the traditional quilting. I will mention the teacher's name if that's gonna be on the exhibit or somewhere in public. I will mention the teacher's name, and so that they can go back who is helping me to break the normal or orthodox way to do it. So change has to be somewhat reasonable. And I think many changes are reasonable in this world. But for some reason, Sashiko and very other small, easy category are under the very, very big influence of somebody changing it just because. Like if Sashiko requires like $10,000 or $100,000 equipment to do it, it's not gonna be broken by somebody. If Sashiko requires like 3 years of stitching practice to, be somebody, then there will not be any of my concern because they will be good. But because it's so easy and because it's so ordinary, it can be ignored very, very easily. And I think Sashiko is not only one. There are many practice or culture has been lost, had lost, had lost, had been lost, has been lost, will be lost. I cannot speak on behalf of everything, but I can do what I can do for that. So Anbai is the kind of key, and if you know that like intuitive or right amount or second nature, that's it. That's the answer. So you can of course teach that to others as yours instead of saying like the rice grain size, which has no idea. Whew. Today was a very good live streaming because I realized I cannot do stitching without this. I knew it. I really knew it. I really wanted to work on this denim today, but I just I need more experience to do it, I guess. I cannot believe that I couldn't do it. I was doing it, but my brain stopped working. Like I had to focus on stitching a little bit and it completely froze. And I couldn't find the next topic. After I started stitching this one, you know, I kept talking for like 30 minutes or so. So another complaint, not a complaint, another what do I call that? Another speaking up opportunity in front of the people who I don't need to deliver this message. So it's okay. It's okay. It's gonna happen slowly. I have to just keep leaving those messages behind so somebody can pick it up. Somebody like you, but who do not know me at all yet, and they can catch up when they find those archives. They have to be ready to receive this message. It's really, it might sound a little arrogant or, yeah, like looking from the above message, but they have to be ready. Those people have to be ready to listen. Otherwise, this is just BS. So even if I go to their place, knock the door, ask them to listen to what I'm saying, they will not listen. They will always find a way to deny it or fight back. So it's kind of meaningless to do so. That's why I don't like I do not need or I do not want any like Sashiko police or something. It's kind of meaningless. They will never listen if they are not willing to listen. So until the day they may change their view, or you know, something might happen. And then you may think like, well, Atsushi, that's too slow. You have to be worried about it too more. Like you have to do something about it. Well, that's true. Like that's quite true that I might have to do something about it. But I have a pretty strong guess that those people who only read what they want to read are not doing Sashiko 10 years from now. It's really easy to start, which means it's really easy to quit. It's kind of the same as the entrance level and the graduation levels are kind of the same. Graduation means like leaving behind. So I think many people will leave Sashiko when this trend is over. Like many people. It's gonna go back to the market I know. Which I probably will complain how sad it is. Because it was not that busy at all. I worried about I was even thinking about how to advertise Sashiko. So that's a whole different story. It's opposite of what I do right now. But I don't think they will keep stitching when they don't see anything behind. I mean, if they don't get the benefit out of Sashiko. So it's another good indicator to look at it. Do they like stitching or do they like something else that they can get by stitching? That might be a good question to ask yourself too. Do I like stitching itself or do I like something, some outcome? Well, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. do I like something out of like outcome that stitching can make, or in this trend of slow fashion visible mending, those like a sustainable trend, some may feel that they like themselves for stitching. They like the figure of stitching that they are stitching. Either way, it's not what Sashiko is. Besides this, I like stitching. So when those people who like stitching just because I like stitching are not gonna stop no matter what happens to the trend, because trend is not really a big deal. Sometimes they think that trend is troublesome because they don't get what they want. If they're looking at something else, then they will probably leave. I don't think that's a wrong assumption. That's not gonna be that far from now. Trend repeat. The last trend was about 60 years ago. So it was about to start. Sashiko's trend started to, Sashiko's initial, previous trend started about 60 years ago. And the peak was about 1968, 69. I think that as long as I know, that's the sort of the peak of the Sashiko revival boom. My family is one of those who made the system, who made the kind of, business out of it. And I think that's the time they revived, and that's the time they published quite many books, including the one I recommend in Japanese though. Her name is Eiko Yoshida Sensei. If you can read, or if you don't mind trying to read it, her book is Sashiko Hyakuyo. Hyakuyo is 100 leaves of Sashiko, is one good book to read. I mean, there are things different from what I'm saying and what's written, but if I were to recommend a book, that is the book. Well, there's another book, but it's very out of print, and it's almost impossible even for me to find it for sale. So besides that, Sashiko the book by Yoshida Sensei is also out of print, but you can find it from the a second-hand market quite easily if you don't mind spending extra money. But yeah, so there's no book that I recommend right now though in English. Well, I don't really read the books in Japanese right now because I don't go back to Japan. I have not gone back to Japan for 10 years by now, so I don't know the new books. But I try to check the books in English, and I don't have a recommendation, unfortunately. So I have to write. Wait for me. I am very concerned about my English writing. I know I am doing on purpose that my writing is quite broken. Grammar-wise, my writing is not really good. It's probably not good enough for the publication. But there's a reason I kind of write like that. I mean, my original writing skill is very poor. But on top of that, I try to sort of I try to make rules for myself in writing. ありがとうございます、レイコさん。Thank you. That's the book in Japanese, but what was I talking? Oh yeah, the English. I am realizing my English is not really like my writing is not really good. It's not the quality for the like writing for thesis statement or any papers for that matter. But I do have some rules in my writing, which I sometimes explain what it is. But when I use this double quotation mark in my writing, that means that word I want you to think about it a little more than your understanding that specific word. Yes, I'm asking a lot. So if I write down Sashiko with a double quotation mark, which means that this might not be the Sashiko you know already. So I might be adding some meaning to that word or twisting that word. And I imply a lot in my writing because reading between lines are a very important skill in learning Japanese or communicating in Japanese. And reading between lines means that sort of imagining it, which means that reading something is not written, understanding something is not spoken by imagining the conversations or writing before and after. It's like magic for that matter. But that's kind of the skill every single Japanese people have. Good or bad, strong or weak. Usually the person who has that strong ability gets sick. Anyway, so I don't, of course, I'm not gonna say there's nobody who has that kind of skill in the US or English, but English language itself is very well designed to communicate without those unclearness, ambiguity. If we follow the English rules, it is very easy or straightforward to avoid asking the reader to read between lines. In fact, probably asking the readers to read between lines is quite bad. So, my point is, my goal is to deliver the message. My goal is to pass down the Sashiko we practice. So pass down is the goal. And I decided to deliver my message. But I want you to think what you can do with that information or story. So I will deliver the package of food ingredients like onions, chicken, or from local supermarket. I will make a delivery to your place. Sometimes I may pre-cut it, prepare it, so you might just have to mix it. Sometimes you may have to cook from the scratch by, filleting the fish, if that's the requirement. It really depends on what and when and how. I used to be like, if you wanna learn it, come and get it. Don't be lazy to, come and get it. If you come to me, I will, pass it down to you. I was like that little bit first few years. But I learned that delivery is also important, and I decided to do delivery. But unfortunately, what world is asking is for me to spoon feed. Not only make it for them, but spoon feed them. And that's sad. Yes, you will be full. So the goal is completely satisfied. You were hungry, so you wanted to eat something. You order something, you get delivery, and somebody might give you the food. There's nothing wrong with that. if we think about logic itself. But it's a little bit sad as the culture. And I believe that the people like this thinking are a very, very big population. It's just Sashiko is just too small to be picked to that population. Unfortunately, the majority of the, I don't want to say majority, but spoon feeding is very easy for them because they don't have to think about it. Somebody decided it's good for their health. And if they believe it, that's good for them. But they don't know what they're eating. That's kind of scary. And I don't know if it's only me, but I'm very much the one who like to know what I'm eating. As much as I can. Sometimes it's impossible to know. I mean, sometimes I would like to wish that it's made out of that, but we don't know it, right? Wow. I'm not that wealthy to completely choose from the local farmer's market or local butcher. So I have to sometimes go to the, outlet and stuff like that for the food. And then, of course I get something, then probably this is chicken. Probably. But it's okay for me for now. I have to balance it. Like if I have a choice to continue this Sashiko story or eat 100% organic local food, I prefer to continue Sashiko story. I mean, my health, I don't have that many years left. Of course, health is important, but there are something more important. So that was the story about Anbai, which I kind of expanded a lot. But so no action is really, I'm not asking any actions to anybody here. Sometimes things can get quite aggressive, and I have received several sort of these encouragement that they will support me if there's going to be any nasty things. I really appreciate it, but fighting is not really the purpose because I am not interested in defining what is right or wrong. If my goal is to validate what I do is right, fighting might be a good idea, but that's not my goal. My goal is for them to acknowledge what I'm saying. For that, forcing them to listen is not the way to do it. They have to be ready. So fighting is not the option to do that. But it's good. It's good that I don't have to prove that I'm right. I don't have to win, which means I don't have to. There's no way to lose. I mean, there's no win or lose to begin with. So, only things I could ask is to keep watching, enjoy stitching. Your stitching will speak for you, for us, for me. Okay, this almost, wow, what? I've been stitching for 1 hour already? Oh my. Really? Wow. All right, thank you so much for today's live streaming as well. Next, I can do the next week as well, but I believe that the Sashiko Gathering is 2 weeks from now, not the next Thursday, but a week after that. Today's 3rd. Let me check the calendar. It's really, I talked to Maiko-san about it, and she said yes, so it should be good, but next Sashiko Gathering is, my cell phone is not on it. Scary calendar. Yes, it's 17th after this live streaming, like starting 10:30 and 90 minutes or so. So if you'd like to join that, please, I will paste the link to register that. If you have registered already, you don't have to register anything, you will get the link. Besides that, is the concept of ma part of Sashiko? Space. I think it's the concept of space. It's probably more martial art. 呼吸の間. It's like a distance or space in physical or more like philosophical context. I wouldn't say there's no relationship between Ma and Sashiko, but it's really not strongly connected to do that. I will kind of look into that. That's a very good question. I have never thought about that. Is Ma the part of the Sashiko? Probably not. No, the answer is no. It's not the part of Sashiko. The core essence of Sashiko is the ordinary, and Ma requires something a little bit extraordinary. Like, in order to master the Ma, one has to be kind of master of something. And for me, there's no such a thing as master of Sashiko. For that, Ma might not be. Well, I'll ask around too. That's a very good question. As of now, as my opinion, as my understanding, Ma is not part of Sashiko. All right, thank you so much for coming to the Thursday night Sashiko live streaming. I will come back next Thursday. As always, if you could click the like button, good button, that'd be really appreciated. I still have those. I mean, yeah, I will keep having those, but it's very helpful if I could get a nice, good percent ratio to keep this account healthy. If you're watching this as an archive, you may leave the comments so I may be able to talk about it next time. If not, I hope you have a good night. And I hope to see you next Thursday as well. Have a good night. Bye-bye. Yep.